My dear folks, hello, this is Shippy the Explorer. You come back to the storytelling time of the Caribbean, the diaspora, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, North and South America, um, Greater Antilles, Lesser Antilles, the story that is depicted mainly in Jamaica. We use Jamaica as an example, but it's spread all over those regions that had the effect or was affected by colonization and slavery. And welcome to Shippy the Explorer, the historian, the genealogist, a man who takes you back into history, into some of the great places and times of the past. And what I wanted to do is just relax. I just wanted to get a cup of chocolate tea. And I said tea or something like that, and your crackers, and just sit down and listen to these stories. Because you may be able to get the information from Google, but if I can tell you the story in a nice, entertaining way, then I'm doing my duty. So we're talking about olden days were golden days, but we put a question mark against at the end because were they? Were they? Story come to bump. So we continue the story of the foods of the Caribbean, the fruits of the Caribbean, and like so many of them, hundreds of fruits and food in the Caribbean. But today, I think I'm just gonna touch on just two. I'm gonna talk about the ackee and the breadfruit. Just to give you a touch of bring you some facts about these two things. So let's jump into this thing, and the topic and the main topic would probably be saying eventually says the pots of slavery are still cooking their dishes. The pots of slavery are still cooking their dishes. Now, many of you know the play people who. Let's start out with ackee, Ackee, and the scientific name is Belgia sapodilla. Belgia sapodilla, of the family of Sapodidae, Sapodian, soapberry, lychee, and logan. Believe it or not, the lychee and the logans are sweet to a certain extent. But ackee, let's bring up. Maybe I can't use the Google thing because the Google would probably charge me for using their image. But in any case, ackee, that red or yellow golden fruit, it looks like a fruit on the tree. I'm gonna bring in here we go. And it looks so beautiful on the tree. It's one of the most, it could be used as a decorative plant because when you plant it in the on the lawns, and the lawn is green, and the tree is lush and roundish, and the trees are laden, you and then you see the red fruits on the tree before they open. And even when they open, it has that white flesh with black seeds hanging down. And when you see that, it's a lovely tree. And when you go into, I've seen it in West Africa, in Ghana, especially in the Accra region and the Akan region, but in the Accra region down on the coast, they don't eat it, but the Akans up in the central part of the country, they eat it. So most likely, Jamaicans probably introduced, was more encouraged by the Akans to eat this thing. So let's get into the ackee, the substance. Now that you have to allow the ackee to open up, and a lot of times it has 3 pegs in it. But if you don't allow it, it's one of the most toxic, poisonous fruits in Jamaica. And the fruit and the poison is called Hyperglycia A and Hyperglycia B. I think the seed has the B, and the fruit itself has the Hyperglycia A in it. And the symptoms is drowsiness, muscular exhaustion, coma, and death. So why Jamaicans eat this? Why Jamaicans eat this? Because maybe they were taught how to eat it. But it has become the national dish of Jamaica when you mix it with the codfish. So how is it? How did it come? Let's talk about how did it come to Jamaica. In 1793, on the HMS, it's a HMS ship captained by Captain Blight. He brought plants or cuttings to Jamaica, and they planted. And the same thing is for the breadfruit. We'll talk about the breadfruit also. But the ackee, you plant that tree, and when the fruits come, then it's opened up and you take out those 3 pegs, 3 or 4 pegs. I have ackee tree at home now that's sometimes producing 5 pegs. Is that a mutation or what? Or is that a breach to the system? 4 and 5 pegs. Believe it or not, I have pictures. I should bring it up, but I can't find it right now. I should have kept those pictures on my phone. Yeah, man. You climb the tree and you pick those things with the stick, the open ones, the one that are open, and you take out those lush pegs with the white body or cream body and with the black head. You wring off the black head, the seed, that is the seed. And then you open up that body, which looks like an interior of an intestine, and you take out that strip of red filament, and you clean up all that. And then that white flesh, you can wash it, but you don't have to. But you have different types of akkees. One you cook in cold water, and one you cook in warm water, in lukewarm water. But most of the time is the cold water. So you put the pot on with the cold water, and you can just start the boiling. Put the ackee in, and you start the boiling. But not that's most times, but sometimes. But another time, the most common time we use in the Caribbean now is that you put the pot on with a little salt and or with the salted fish in there, and you throw the ackee. When the water starts to boil and it's boiling madly, you gradually add the flesh of the ackee in the pot. So you don't let the water go back down to cold or cool. So you gradually add the ackee until you're finished putting the amount in. And you let that boil until it's the flesh of the ackee is you're able to penetrate it with a fork. And you take that ackee and you take the codfish and you clean up the codfish and you mix that with, you put the codfish in the pan, in a frying pan, and you, with some onions and pepper and garlic and also the scallion, and then you add the ackee and then you roll it together, and that's the ackee and saltfish dish. But sometimes people do get sick because they did not pick their own ackee and they might have bought it on the street from a dealer, and that dealer maybe did not pick the ackee and allow it to mature. So often, not often, but once in a while, you'll have people getting sick, getting the drowsiness and the exhaustion and the coma and the vomiting and all that. And if you get that sick, there's no cure. All you have to do, there is no relief. You just keep rested, hydrate yourself as much as possible, and let it wear out of the body. Dissipate out through the body. So, but the dish is very unusual. And most of you who are tourists and go to Jamaica and have seen the ackee dishes with the Scotch bonnet and the tomatoes on top and the green scallion and all that, and the Scotch bonnet dangling to the side and the black pepper, and you dab in that with crackers or some white bread, and you have a cup of chocolate or coffee, and you think you're in a world of scrambled egg. The first time you see it, you think it's scrambled egg, but not necessarily. It's not scrambled egg. When you taste it, you realize it's not scrambled egg. But as I said, it's coming from most likely West Africa. So let's continue. Now the other food that, or fruit that is common, the common thing about these two fruits is Captain Blight. Captain Blight. Blightia. You know, and in 1794, on the HMS Bounty again, British Royal Navy ship Captain Blight brought samples of the breadfruit plants from native Guinea and the Indo-Malayan region. And the historical name, or the scientific name for it, is Artocarpus altilis. Artocarpus altilis. Altilis. You can look it up in Google. But the two things. So here's a story before we go on. The breadfruit was brought in, I think the first batch died, and then by 1789 there was a mutiny on the ship, on that ship by Fletcher Christian, and Captain Blight was kicked off with some of his men off the ship, and they rowed with a boat for 4,000 miles until they reached the island of Timor. And they finally reached back England, where he could tell the story that they had a mutiny on the ship, and that's real history. But the commonality for the Aki and the Breadfruit is Captain Blight. But these are, I regard them as fruits and food from slavery, because they were brought into the Caribbean region and the Americas by him, and to feed and sustain the slaves, and it's still feeding us today until this very day. And if we didn't have those things, sometimes I don't think a lot of people in the Caribbean and Americas would have survived. Yes, we have yam, we have potatoes, and we have sugarcane and so, but the breadfruit and the haki and the salted fish sustained us till now. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Because some of those slaves, the food and from slavery is currently damaging our health. The salt fish, the salted mackerel, the salted shad, the salted red herring, the salted pork. The salt is causing hypertension and damage to our physical body. And we seem like we can't eliminate them out of our food, because slavery, the foods of slavery, is so ingrained in our body that we seem like we're conditioned to it. We are chained to these fruits. And I have started a campaign to talk about especially saltfish, because that's a common one now, that I think we should stop eating it. You know why? Because the whole salted fish was salted codfish. And even as a child coming up, when I go to the store and the shop, and they chop a piece of salted fish, and they were cutting it, you want to buy a pound or so, and a little piece jump out, it drop, fly over in the counter and fly on the counter or on the ground. And as a child, you would run up and get that piece of saltfish, and you brush it off, you put it in your mouth. But guess what? That saltfish, you'd be able to chew it and roll it in your mouth until it dissolves or you swallow it. The saltfish nowadays I'm saying it's junk. It's saltfish, it's not salted cod. It's not codfish anymore. So I would implore as many of us, stop buying the saltfish. Mackerel, in a sense, you can get fresh mackerel, you can get fresh, slightly salted mackerel, or you can get the fresh one, frozen or on ice. You can get those at some particular stores, and you can see where Shippity Explorer has cooked it in there, it's all sold. But what kind of benefit do you get from shad and red herring? Some of you younger folks would know what I'm talking about, unless your parents are from Jamaica or the Caribbean islands and they have exposed you to it. But what benefit do you get from it? More than headache in the long run, it's headache and hypertension, your body falling apart and all that. That's all you get. So, the pots of slavery, they're still cooking their dishes. And some of those dishes are not good for us. We have learned, I think the scientists have said that the Caribbean folks, the people who have experienced slavery and have been exposed to that extreme salt, and now you are, I don't know if you said you're immune to it, but you seem like the salt is built in your body and you can't seem to get rid of it. It's there. So we are, a high percentage of us are hypertensive, you know. So we are given a gift, and the gift turns out to be bad, mal for our body. But you go back to the taste of the ackee and saltfish. So now you have the pot of ackee and saltfish, and it's ready and it's steaming hot in the frying pan. And you had picked a breadfruit, nice and round and speckled with its stain. And you did not allow it to fall from the 50 feet from the tree, up in the tree, but you went up with a bag and you picked it. You picked it with your hand and you drop it in that bag, and you grab that bag and you gradually bring it down to the floor, to the ground, and you allow that breadfruit, you take the stem of it and you wring the stem is like this, and you wring it out and you cut a little hole and you turn it down, you let it drain for a day or two. But if you're hungry, you let it drain for an hour, half an hour, or an hour before you start the roasting. You light your country fire in the wood. Yes, if you allow it to drain and slightly ripe, then you allow it to ripe slightly. And the next day when you have ready to heat it, ready to roast it, then you light the wood fire. Light the wood fire and the coconut husk and the wood, whether bamboo or hardwood or softwood. And sometimes you don't put the one breadfruit in it. You put 1, 2, 3, 4. But if it's a small family, you have the one. And you let that burn from the two ends and then on the sides. And then when you take it up and it's burnt all around and you smell the steam like it's baked, fresh baked bread, buttered bread. The smell of that coming from the inner core. And when you peel the breadfruit, it's like hot white bread. And you peg that and make that, put a couple pegs in your plate. And then you dish out the ackee to the side. And you say in the old country, you're gone to bed. Because you can't stop eating until it is finished. And when you're finished, a lot of times you're filled and satisfied. So that's a dish of ackee and saltfish and breadfruit, roasted breadfruit. But remember, the salt in the ackee is about to attack the body and give you hypertension. So you can have a substitute for the salted fish. You can use sardines. You can use mackerel. And if you're not a Rasta man, you can use some pork, dices of pork in the ackee and eliminate the fish. So it's pork and codfish, pork and ackee and breadfruit. And that's another dish. But a lot of us don't heat the pork. So there you go. That's an experience that you have missed and probably won't experience it because of religious reasons. We are encouraged to stay away from that. But why I use the topic of I'm using the topic of this the pots of slavery are still cooking, because a lot of those dishes we didn't realize we are using them now. We are using the turned cornmeal, and in Africa they call it akali or something like that, agali. And where they pound it, they steam it, and then they pound it, and they turn it, and they turn it. And by turning it so many times, it develops a little of elasticity, and it's thicker and stickier than when we boil the cornmeal, turned cornmeal in Jamaica. But then I realize it's sometimes, a few years ago, I realized that what it was really is just the food from slavery. The slaves would work in the field all day till late evening, and when they come to their house, they have their huts, which house? Had to come to their huts and all that. They had to go maybe to their field and plant and look after their little patch of vegetable garden, and look after their pig and chickens and all that. And then the quickest thing to cook in those days in slavery was to turn the cornmeal, boil it and turn it and turn it, and in 15-20 minutes you have a meal. And then you may have a piece of pork back then, or a piece of salted fish, a piece of salted pork, really, and you drink some water, and that would be the meal of the day. And we're still using it. But the two main things I'm remind you that we are talking about today is the ackee from West Africa and the breadfruit from Malaysian region. And they're still feeding us in Jamaica and the Caribbean, keeping us well fed too, keeping us robust with a tinge of hypertension. So I can't tell you to stop eating these things. I can encourage you to cut back on some of them, because I suspect that the breadfruit is also giving sugar, diabetes. I just feel like the breadfruit is causing that. It's so starchy. The ackee is another thing. It's probably one of the better things because it does not allow you to get fat, and although it has all those nutrients. But be careful of the breadfruit. Eat it, enjoy it, boil it, roast it, steam it, fry it. Even the green one, this full one, you can peel it and you just slice it like a plantain and put it in the frying pan and fry it slowly. And that slice or slices would also cook to the stage where you can eat it. So I can only encourage you to eat less, eat proportionally. That's the word. Eat proportionally. And don't climb the ackee tree too much. because the limbs are brittle. I had a cousin who went up into the ackee tree, and by the time in half an hour he was down because the limb broke with him and he broke his arm. So don't extend yourself out there. Get a long stick and pick the ones that are open. And don't let it rain on them, because if you let it rain before you pick them, they're gonna rot. They're gonna get mushy and no good. That's how quick it is. So pick them when the sun is hot and the fruit are open and lush and pretty, red on the outside, buttery on the inside, with the black eyes looking at you like patu. And those of you who know what is patu, you're good. But for those of you who don't know what is patu, we call them, they are owls, O-W-Ls, the birds, the round eyes. So the ackees are like that. So enjoy the meal and take care. Be careful. You don't climb too high. Because if you climb too high, chance you may fall or expose yourself. Take care. Walk good. Breadfruit, ackee, and saltfish. Here I come. Talk to you. If you like these stories, like this information, Shippy the Explorer is here to bring you back to the olden days. The olden days are golden days, maybe. See you. Take care. Walk good.